After being chosen to head a secret organization, a baby super genius comes up against a new competitor and must defeat him in order to become CEO of a major company. Today we're going to recap the 4th season of the series, The Boss Baby, Back in Business, from 2020. After becoming president of Baby Corp, Theodore and his executive team create an action plan to increase adult favoritism for babies and decide to call this mission Yellow 100. That afternoon, Theodore discovers that the triplets have rented out the company office to a group of dogs who work for Puppy Co. So as president of the corporation, he has to figure out how to solve this problem. That afternoon, Theodore has to attend a performance by his older brother, so while he's away, he enlists the help of his employees to find a solution. After his scout troops presentation, Tim returns home with his friend Petrovsky and, during their walk, the pair see a huge branch fall on top of a parked vehicle. When he hears a baby crying, the boy rushes to help and pulls Frankie out of the rubble. At that moment, Tim discovers that she was working on the Yellow 100 mission and intended to put a baby-scented sticker inside the car when, suddenly, the wind knocked the branch over and Frankie was startled. After the rescue, a group of people approach Tim and congratulate him on his rescue, leaving Frankie furious. Upon returning to Baby Corp's headquarters, Theodore discovers that Puppy Co. has decided to turn the office into a nursery and now the place is full of preschoolers. While trying to solve this new problem, Boss Baby receives a call from his brother and Tim informs him that he will receive a Medal of Honor from the mayor for rescuing a baby in danger. So Theodore has to return home and once again leaves the company's problems in the hands of his employees. During Tim and Petrovsky's award ceremony, Theodore spots Frankie rubbing grease on the floor and asks what she's doing. He then discovers that the little girl is involved in the Yellow 100 mission and plans to cause a major accident so that everyone will hate the pair of scouts. When they step on the slippery floor, the adults will crumble and the blame will fall on Tim and Petrovsky's shoulders. In this way, the babies will regain favor with the adults. To prevent his brother from being hated by the whole town, Theodore contacts his team and says he'll let the dogs stay in the office on one condition. After the accident, when all the adults are looking for those responsible for having greased the floor, the dogs show up and end up taking the blame. As people's love for dogs declines, babies are becoming more and more beloved by people. However, a few weeks later, the graph used to accompany this result shows a drop in the favoritism of the babies, causing despair among the members of Baby Corp. While investigating the reason for this crisis, the staff discover that a new program that has recently premiered is making people fall more and more in love with wild animals. That afternoon, Ted and Janice take their children to watch the recording of the new program and Theodore is chosen to make a special appearance. After being shamed in public, the Boss Baby comes to the conclusion that Maria has deliberately chosen him in order to humiliate him and decides to go to account with her. With the help of his older brother, Theodore manages to unmask his adversary, who reveals that she heads a secret organization. However, the woman says she doesn't intend to compete with Baby Corp, because the more adults who love babies there are, the more viewers her show will have. Upon discovering Maria's true intentions, Theodore returns to the company determined to start a war, as he doesn't believe a word she says. However, when he presents his plan to the company director, Boss Baby is forbidden to start a war because Emiliano says that babies only counterattack when necessary. So Theodore comes up with a new strategy and decides to provoke Maria and her pets in order to force them to strike the first blow. That afternoon, during recording, the Baby Corp babies invade the studio and start destroying the set. Furious at the invasion, Pig and Tam decide to take action, but are interrupted by Maria, who manages to entertain the children with her music. The next day, the trio visits the company's headquarters and Maria reveals that she plans to buy the building to turn it into a new production center. However, Emiliano and the other members of the council refuse the proposal and decide to start a war against those animals. At this point, Theodore orders Stacy to publish the photos she took of Pig and Tam attacking the children and they end up losing popularity in the market. Now, Boss Baby has to deal with a new problem, as the employees of his company are planning to ask for a transfer because they can no longer stand the dogs and older children who have invaded the place. To do this, he has to spend the whole day at Baby Corp, so he decides to find a look-alike to help Tim choose his father's birthday present. After passing on all the information about his family to Lance, Theodore asks him to go and meet Tim and, in the meantime, throws a cupcake party to increase the satisfaction level of his team. When he learns that his younger brother won't be able to help him choose his father's birthday present, Tim is furious, but Lance soon figures out how to calm him down. That afternoon, the two have so much fun together that, at the end of the cupcake party, when Theodore is about to go home, Tim says he doesn't need his help anymore. The boy believes that Lance knows him better than his own brother, because the two of them had a lot of fun that afternoon. However, The truth is that this only happened because Theodore gave his employee a file on his family that he had written himself. When he discovers this, instead of being happy to know that his brother knows him so well, Tim gets even angrier. Boss Baby then decides to hang up the call and continue working at the company with his coworkers, as he feels more valued by them. However, it's not long before Stacy and her friends realize that her boss is having problems with her brother and decide to bring Tim into the office so they can sort things out. Luckily, the plan works and, after a few minutes of intense fighting, the two brothers become friends again. That weekend, Theodore and his family went to watch the soccer match of a local team called the Hive. However, during the match, all the fans ended up being stung by bees and, to avoid losing their popularity, the team decided to change its name. On Monday, Midge Marksberry opened a competition for fans to suggest a new name, so Boss Baby intends to win the competition and name the team the Babies. After his plan is approved by the committee, Theodoro recruits his brother to help him and prepares the speech that Tim will have to give in public. However, when he sees all those people in the audience, the boy is terrified and asks his friend to perform in his place. When Petrovsky takes the stage, he makes a nice speech, but instead of suggesting the correct name, he says that the team should be called the Hot Dogs. Desperate, Theodore and his team think of a way to reverse the situation. The next day, Petrovsky accompanies Midge on an interview and Tim interrupts them to deliver a cart of hot dogs to Marcia Krinkle, the interviewer. The boy has been sent by his younger brother to give a speech on behalf of the Babies while Midge and Marcia devour the snack. After listening to Tim's speech, Midge is in doubt as to what the name of her team will be and asks the fans to help her choose between the Hot Dogs and the Babies. This argument led to so much discord that the townspeople began to fight each other and even Theodore's parents were affected by the argument. Thanks to this controversy, the popularity of Babies has fallen and the Boss Baby once again asks his brother to help him solve this problem. During a game of golf, Tim and Petrovsky come to the conclusion that the only way to resolve this impasse is through a game of soccer, in which the Babies and the Hot Dogs will compete against each other. When the day of the duel arrives, Puppyco's dogs take to the field to duel Baby Corp's Babies and, within the first few minutes of the game, a draw occurs. However, when the game is about to come to an end, the dogs score another goal and Petrovsky is so happy that he ends up throwing out all the hot dogs he's eaten during the match. Seeing this scene, Tim and all the fans in the audience are disgusted and also start to throw everything out, so they decide to leave the stadium. Knowing that people will never want to hear about hot dogs again, Midge decides to call her team the Babies and Theodore celebrates his victory. One night, while going to the movies with his parents, Boss Baby discovers that the town mayor has a daughter his own age and thinks of a foolproof idea to complete the Yellow 100 mission. For his mission to work, Theodore asks Tim to help him convince his parents to let him sleep at the mayor's house, saying that he and Joy are great friends. When he arrives at the couple's house, the baby is amazed at the mess, but tries to carry on as normal with his plan. Suddenly, Jimbo, Stacy and Frankie arrive to help him look for the mayor's idea book, but before the Boss Baby has a chance to insert fake ideas into that notebook, the mayor shows up. By now, Theodore is getting sleepy, but he needs to stay awake to get that book back. However, after dinner, the baby is overcome by sleep and wakes up in the middle of the night to complete his mission. After forging the pages of new ideas in the mayor's handwriting, Stacy goes to find Boss Baby and hands him the papers. Exhausted, Theodore begins to see things that aren't there and is terrified by the shadow of an owl. While trying to escape, the baby falls asleep again and dreams that he is being attacked by a pile of dirty clothes, which have joined together to form a giant monster. In the morning, Theodore wakes up on the mayor's lap and discovers that his plan has worked, because the man has read the ideas he wrote to increase the popularity of babies. Upon returning to the company, Boss Baby discovers that Agent Simmons is working on a new invention. When the prototype is ready, Baby Corp will produce diapers that last 24 hours and this will make life much easier for parents, who will no longer have to get up in the middle of the night to change their babies. Excited by this news, Theodore decides to hold a meeting with the board and discovers that the baby consultant has just arrived at the company. Boss Baby isn't too happy about the news, however, as he knows that the consultant's job is to point out all the problems they find in the company. Knowing this, Theodore decides to keep the prototype of the 24-hour diaper a secret and asks his employees to help him test it while he tries to get rid of the consultant. After presenting the whole company, the Boss Baby says that there is nothing wrong with his team's work, but the consultant insists on inventing a problem and claims that Theodore is hindering the development of his employees. To prove that this isn't true, the president will have to stay locked in his office all day while his employees work. At that moment, Stacy is secretly testing the 24-hour diaper and verifies that the invention does indeed work. However, before starting to market it, the team decided to add one more detail. inserting a pair of pockets on the back of the diaper. After producing the prototypes on a large scale, Stacy goes to the boardroom to present Simmons' invention, but the idea is rejected. Even so, Emiliano congratulates Theodore and his team on the initial idea and says that the diapers will be able to be marketed as soon as they have undergone some adjustments. That day, the consultant is accused of trying to steal the position of president of Baby Corp and is dismissed by the board members. Boss Baby, on the other hand, once again proves to be an indispensable member of his team, but ends up being suspended from his job for a week. Since he can't go to work, Theodore has to find ways to distract himself at home, but he discovers that his family is about to go on a vacation. The problem is that Grandpa Ed and his wife Gigi live in the countryside and the baby hates small towns. So, when Tim meets his grandparents, he asks them to take him for a walk in the big city, and Theodore is amazed by all those executive buildings. When they enter the mall, Tim and Gigi wander around the stores while the baby stays with his grandfather. As soon as Ed starts to take a nap, Boss Baby goes off to explore the place and, for the first time, he manages to get into a business office full of adults. While trying to get along with the staff, Theodore spots another baby with a mustache walking around the office and decides to go after him. Furious at having a new competitor, Carlisle orders the Boss Baby to leave, otherwise they will go to war. However, instead of being frightened by this threat, Theodore becomes even more excited and accepts the challenge of defeating his new adversary. In an attempt to eliminate his competitor once and for all, Carlisle decides to fire him, as he holds the position of operations director and has a lot of prestige in the company. However, just before he is fired, Theodore uses his corporate skills to impress his superiors and is promoted to chief financial officer. Now, the two babies will have to work side by side as they try to prove their leadership. As a last resort, Carlisle decides to spread false rumors about Theodore, who is summoned to the CEO's office. At this point, the two babies start fighting with each other and Carlisle ends up losing his mustache, allowing McHenessy to discover his true identity. Confused, the woman begins to freak out and has to be replaced by Theodore, who ends up taking over as CEO. After defeating his adversary and solving all the company's crises, Boss Baby quits his new job and moves back home with his grandparents. A week later, Theodore and his family get into the car to drive home and, as they say goodbye, Mrs. Gigi notices that the baby is taking a long time to grow up. After hearing this, Ted and Janice begin to worry about their son and decide to keep an eye on him to see if anything is wrong. Annoyed at being watched all the time and unable to do anything but act like a normal baby, Theodore thinks of a plan to get back to Baby Corp. The strategy consists of getting a certificate from Kevin's doctor, because if the pediatrician says he's fine, his parents can relax and get back to their normal routine. However, Theodore needs help convincing the doctor that he's normal and Simmons hands over his latest invention to his boss. According to her, that drink cancels out the effects of Baby Corp's special formula, turning its user into a normal baby. To reverse the process, Tim will need to give his brother another drink after the consultation, as it will turn Theodore back into a super genius baby. When they find out that Boss Baby will be out all afternoon, Flea and the other dogs decide to start a rebellion and attack the Baby Corp employees. In an attempt to get rid of those dogs, Stacy and Jimbo throw bait to lure them into the meeting room and manage to trap them. Minutes later, Maria and her pets show up to terrorize the babies, saying that they are about to buy the building. With the help of Pig and Tam, Flea and his friends have managed to free themselves and are continuing their rebellion. To prevent Baby Corp from being destroyed, the baby consultant returns and applies to be the new leader of the corporation, with the promise that he will put everything back in order. In this moment of desperation, the employees end up accepting the consultant's leadership and run away with him to hide from the puppy co-dogs. While the entire team remains in hiding, Theodore is on his way to the doctor's office with his family and Tim discovers that the reversal formula has been stolen. So Jimbo offers to help him get the drink back and has to chase the dogs that stole it. After the appointment, Tim takes his brother to meet Jimbo, but before Theodore can take the formula, another baby appears with a cart full of bottles to confuse them. When Jimbo is knocked down, he loses the formula and Theodore has to try all the bottles until he finds the right drink. When he's finally back to normal, Boss Baby returns to the office and uses his super burp to defeat all the rebels who dared to defy him. Despite having won the battle, Theodore knows that the war has only just begun and begins to prepare for the next attack. The following week, Boss Baby begins to cut spending in the company in order to increase the budget that will be used for the war, even though he knows that this is an unpopular measure among the employees. That afternoon, Baby Corp suffers its first attack and one of its products is withdrawn from the market. In an attempt to find out which of his enemies is trying to sabotage him, Theodore decides to interrogate the baby who was the victim of the accident. While interviewing him, Stacy soon realizes that Baby Mega is a retired Baby Corp agent and has been hired by Baby Boom to help sabotage the company. After its project was shut down, Baby Boom decided to take revenge and, to do so, caused an accident to take the chair designed by Baby Corp off the market. When he discovers that one of his former employees has rebelled against the company, Theodore decides to go and talk to him, but Boom manages to create a diversion to escape. Desperate to capture his enemy, Theodore decides to enlist the help of his friends to complete this mission and rushes to the park in the hope of saving Baby Mega. When he realizes that his first plan has worked, Boom remains committed to causing new accidents in order to destroy Baby Corp, even if he has to put Baby Mega's life in danger. However, during the battle, when he realizes the harm he is causing the babies, Boom decides to interrupt his revenge plan and risk his own life to save Baby Mega from an attack. After recovering, Boom apologizes for having put his colleagues at risk and decides to retire. A few days later, after a long week of preparation, the corporate war is about to begin, but Boss Baby is summoned to take part in a family bazaar. As he needs to return to the company as soon as possible, Theodore decides to help his parents sell all the items and uses all his cuteness to convince customers to take the products. Seeing his family receiving all that money, Boss Baby runs back to his house and picks up more items for the bazaar. However, he soon discovers that he has accidentally sold Tim's favorite toy. When he realizes what a big mistake he's made, Theodore asks for Stacy's help to get Mike back and discovers that the doll is with the baby consultant. The baby says that he will only return the toy if Theodore lets him take over the leadership of the company, but Boss Baby immediately refuses. When they discover that their adversary is hiding in the ventilation shaft, Theodore and his friends go after him and manage to catch him, but soon discover that the doll has been taken by Puppyco's dogs. While Frankie distracts the dogs, Boss Baby manages to retrieve the package Mike was supposed to be hiding in. However, just then, he finds a note left by Pig and Tam realizes that the toy has been stolen by them. So Theodore decides to go to the recording studio to negotiate with Maria and discovers that Mike isn't there either. Upon returning to the office, Boss Baby organizes a search party and manages to recover the doll. However, when he returns it to his brother, Theodore discovers that Tim is sad for another reason, which means that all his efforts to get the toy back were in vain. The truth is that, during the bazaar, Tim found out that Petrovsky, his best friend, is moving out the next day, so Theodore advises his brother to enjoy the rest of the day with him. Suddenly, Boss Baby receives a call from Stacy and is informed that the pacifiers used to transport the babies to Baby Corp's headquarters are defective. At that moment, Theodore decides to test the device and discovers that only his transporter is working properly. While he's alone in the office, Boss Baby realizes that he's been ambushed because his enemies have sabotaged all the baby's pacifiers so that the building is defenseless. Seeing his enemy defenseless, the baby consultant orders his allies to capture Theodore to take him prisoner, but the little one manages to escape and ends up in the dismissal room. A few hours later, Boss Baby manages to return home and is met by Stacy, who accompanies him to the treehouse where other employees are hiding. After losing the war, Theodore feels that he has failed as a leader and becomes very frustrated, so Stacy asks Tim to help cheer him up. However, the boy is busy collecting memories with his best friend and says he won't be able to help them, so all that's left to do now is to get all the other Baby Corp employees together to fight a new war in order to get their office back. The only obstacle is that most babies are satisfied with their new life and don't intend to return to their old job. However, when Emiliano and the other members of the council show up to help, Theodore feels encouraged to go ahead with his plan. Confident that he can win the war, the Boss Baby goes to meet his employees and inspires them to join him. In the morning, when Petrovsky and his family leave, Tim accompanies his younger brother to the basement and discovers that, with Stacy's help, he has gathered all the babies. While the team fails to recover the office, Theodore decides to keep all his employees hidden in his house. Boss Baby needs to come up with a new plan to return to Baby Corp, since the transport pacifiers aren't working. So he decides to interrogate the preschool children who rent part of his office and discovers that there is an emergency door at Baby Corp headquarters through which the babies can pass. That afternoon, Theodore breaks into the office with a small group of allies in order to go unnoticed by his enemies, but Maria and the others soon manage to find them and capture the babies. Luckily, Theodore and Tim manage to hide and walk through the air ducts until they reach the office. At this point, they end up being spotted by the duo Pig and Tam, but manage to knock them down to escape. After entering the elevator, the pair are on their way to the boardroom and come across the baby consultant. Seeing his archenemy, Boss Baby attacks him, but the fight is interrupted by Dondra, who invites them to a meal. Over lunch, Theodore negotiates the terms of his surrender with his enemies, as Maria and the others refuse to let him go. However, with Dondra's help, the baby manages to escape and climbs up the tower to try and fix the transport pacifiers. After the boss baby manages to destroy the transmission antenna, his employees invade the base and attack their enemies. After capturing them, the babies use the pacifiers to transport Maria and her animals to the prison and finally manage to get the office back. That night, after recovering Baby Corp, the babies follow the graph and discover that the Yellow 100 mission has been successfully completed. Now that everything is in order, Theodore decides to retire, as he wants to lead an ordinary baby life with his family. So that weekend, he prepares a farewell party and gives each of his employees a little gift. Now that his position is vacant, Boss Baby decides to appoint Stacy as the new president of the company, as she has proven time and time again that she is fit to take on the leadership role. After taking the formula created by Simmons, Theodore goes back to being an ordinary baby and Tim finally gets the chance to take on the role of Big Brother. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.